Every day, life gives you two choices: react or remain. The world will test you through pressure, delay, judgment, and noise. It will try to pull you into its chaos, hoping you'll respond like everyone else, quickly, emotionally, recklessly. But you're not here to be like everyone else. You're here to master your mind, to walk calmly through storms, to act like nothing disturbs you, because nothing truly can. This is the Chill Stoic, and this is your invitation to peace. Part 1. The power of unbothered presence. Have you ever watched someone in the middle of chaos and they didn't flinch? Everyone else is panicking, yelling, reacting. But that one person, calm, still, focused, present. You wonder, what do they know that I don't? That is the presence of someone who has trained their mind to remain undisturbed. Most people live their entire lives in reaction mode. They respond to tone, to gossip, to traffic, to algorithms, to delays. Their peace is at the mercy of whatever's happening around them. But the Stoic knows peace doesn't come from things going right. Peace comes from building something inside yourself that can't be shaken. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." To most people, that sounds impossible, but to the Stoic, it's training. See, being unbothered is not an attitude. It's not arrogance or indifference. It's clarity, it's discipline, it's understanding what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Think about your own life. How many moments have you lost because someone said something careless and you carried it all day? How many mornings were ruined because you read a message and gave it more power than it deserved? How many times have you let a single moment infect your entire mindset? That's not strength, that's surrender. The Stoic path teaches you to reclaim those moments, not by pretending, not by suppressing, but by rising above. When someone insults you, it's not a command. You don't have to respond. When something inconvenient happens, it's not a punishment, it's an invitation to practice presence. Epictetus reminded us, where something happens, the only thing in your power is your response. Not the event, not the person, not the outcome. Only how you show up in that moment. Now, here's the deeper truth. If you let every little thing disturb you, you give away your freedom. You become a puppet, controlled by traffic, strangers, comments, moods. You become reactive, not reflective. And the moment you react, you've already lost the higher ground. But when you pause, when you take a breath before you speak, when you choose to observe instead of absorb, you reclaim your power. And that moment, as small as it seems, is where self-mastery begins. Being undisturbed is not about building walls or shutting people out. It's about staying centered even as the world tries to pull you off balance. You don't need to argue with everyone who misunderstands you. You don't need to match someone's tone just to prove your point. And you definitely don't need to lose sleep over people who haven't earned your energy. This is what separates the Stoic from the restless. The Stoic learns to observe the world like watching a storm from behind glass. The wind howls, the rain crashes, but inside, the fire stays steady. And here's the best part. This kind of presence isn't just for monks or philosophers or warriors. It's for you, right now, today. But it starts with a decision to stop handing your peace to everything outside of you. To start protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is. You don't have to react. You don't have to defend. You don't have to explain. You only have to return to that inner space where nothing disturbs you anymore. Part 2. Emotional reactivity is a trap. Emotions are powerful. They move us, stir us, connect us. But left unchecked, they can also rule us, dragging us into reactions we later regret. And the greatest danger isn't in feeling, It's in reacting without reflection. You've been there? We all have. Someone says something disrespectful. Before you even think, you raise your voice, shoot back a text, slam a door, or stew in silence. It happens fast. Instant. ZN automatic. That's because most people live in what psychology calls the survival brain. Your nervous system is wired to detect threat. But in modern life, those threats are no longer lions or wildfires. There are emails, delays, criticism, tone of voice. And when we react as if those things are life-threatening, we lose. Not just the argument, we lose clarity. We lose control. We lose peace. The Stoics understood this long before neuroscience gave it a name. Epictetus taught, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. That's not blame. That's ownership. He's saying, you may not control what they say, but you always control what you do next. That's where power begins. In the pause, in the decision not to respond the way your ego wants to. Not because you're afraid, but because you've outgrown it. Every time you react out of emotion instead of principle, you give your power away. You hand your mood to someone else. You allow their chaos to become your chaos, and you become a mirror, reflecting their pain, not your purpose. So, how do you escape this trap? You practice catching yourself, noticing the rise of emotion before it controls your actions. You breathe. You wait. You ask, is this worth my peace? Most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, silence serves you better than the perfect comeback. And most of the time, the moment passes and you're proud you didn't give in. Because what you're really doing is rewiring yourself. You're choosing to lead with reason, not reactivity. You're choosing to align with virtue, not ego. And over time, that becomes your default, not because you're suppressing emotion, but because you've mastered it. Modern Stoicism aligns with what modern science confirms. Emotional regulation is one of the highest indicators of personal success and strong relationships. The ability to feel everything without being ruled by any of it. That's emotional maturity. That's psychological freedom. That's Stoicism. And it's not about perfection. You'll still slip, you'll still feel. But each time you pause, each time you breathe instead of react, you strengthen a new path, a new self. You become someone who doesn't need to fight every battle to prove strength. Because your silence proves it for you. So here's the challenge. The next time emotion rises like a wave, pause and feel it. But don't let it choose for you. You're not your anger. You're not your fear. You are the space beneath those things. And when you respond from that space, you don't just win the moment. You win yourself. Part 3. Stoic dignity in the face of disrespect. Disrespect is a test. It doesn't just test your patience, it tests your sense of self. It challenges the part of you that still believes your value depends on how others see you. And if you're not careful, you'll hand them your piece just to prove your worth. But the Stoic does something radically different. They don't respond to disrespect with ego. They respond with dignity. Because they've done the work to separate their identity from other people's opinions. Epictetus said, remember, it's not he who gives the insult that causes the offense, but the person who interprets it as offensive. It's a hard truth, but a liberating one. What someone says about you is their character. How you respond is yours. Then think about it. Most people react instantly to disrespect. A sharp comment, a mocking tone, a passive-aggressive jab. The ego flares up, and suddenly it becomes a battle of pride. You argue, you defend, you fight to be seen. But the moment you engage on their level, you've already stepped off your center. The Stoic path offers a different option. Don't play their game. Don't match their frequency. Don't let someone's immaturity determine your identity. Why? Because dignity is silent. It doesn't need to win. It already is whole. You're not here to control what others say. You're here to control who you become in response to it. This is especially hard in today's world, where clapbacks go viral, where we're encouraged to stand up for ourselves in ways that often just mirror the same aggression we're trying to escape. But true strength doesn't need an audience. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. In other words, you don't lower yourself to match their darkness. You rise higher so that they can't reach you. Imagine someone tries to belittle you in public. Instead of arguing, you pause. You smile, not out of sarcasm, but from self-assurance. You choose silence, not because you're weak, but because they're not worth disturbing your inner order. That kind of restraint isn't passive. Thanks for having me. Because it says, I know who I am. I don't need you to confirm it. And the beautiful paradox? The quieter your response, the louder your presence becomes. Because nothing unsettles a disrespectful person more than someone who refuses to be provoked. Psychologists call this emotional detachment. Not disconnection, but clarity. You create distance between the stimulus and your identity. And in that space, you find sovereignty. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to carry that insult home. You don't need to replay that moment in your mind on loop. You can let it pass through you, like wind through a mountain, because you've built something stronger than reaction. You've built character, and character is the armor that doesn't rust. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their storm, remember this. You are the calm. You are the mountain. You are the silence that speaks louder than their noise. Part 4. Letting go of what you can't control. If you want to be free, let go. That's the Stoic answer. But it's also one of the hardest lessons to live. We're taught from a young age to take control, to plan, to fix, to predict. But life has its own rhythm, messy, unpredictable, uncontrollable. And if you try to control everything, you end up controlled by everything. One of the core teachings of Epictetus is what we now call the dichotomy of control. Some things are up to us. Most things are not. You can control your thoughts, your decisions, your attitude, your actions. But you can't control traffic. You can't control the past. You can't control how someone treats you. You can't control the weather, the economy, or whether your message gets a reply. And yet, these are the very things we obsess over. We ruminate, we replay, we resist. We wish things were different. We cling to what should have been. And that resistance creates suffering, not the event itself, the attachment to how it should have gone. But here's the breakthrough. Peace isn't found in getting everything right. Peace is found in knowing what's yours to carry and laying down what's not. Marcus Aurelius put it beautifully. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Imagine walking into a storm with a suitcase full of stones. Each stone represents something you can't control. Someone else's opinion, an unanswered message, an uncertain future. And you wonder why it's hard to move forward. The Stoic doesn't ignore the storm. They just stop carrying the stones. The squeal ended with, "Is this within my power?" If yes, act with purpose. If no, release it with grace. That's not passivity. That's wisdom. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to focus on what truly matters. You can care deeply about someone, but you can't control how they feel about you. You can prepare perfectly for a job interview, but you can't force the outcome. You can speak with kindness, but you can't guarantee they'll understand you. Trying to control those things leads to anxiety. Accepting your limits leads to freedom. This is where modern psychology and ancient Stoicism meet. Studies show that people who focus on what they can control have lower levels of stress and higher levels of resilience. They're not helpless, they're empowered. Not because they control everything, but because they stop wasting energy on the uncontrollable. Here's a simple practice. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what drained me today? Was it something I could control? If not, why did I hold on to it? And take a breath and mentally let it go. Write it down, burn the page, say it out loud. Whatever it takes to release the grip. Because what you release, releases you. And the more you practice, the lighter you feel. Not because life is easier, but because you've stopped resisting the inevitable. And that is true power. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, pause. Ask, is this mine to carry? If the answer is no, then put it down and walk forward, lighter, freer, unbothered. Because you were never meant to control the storm. How you move through it. Part 5. The art of choosing silencing over reaction. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. In a world that worships noise, opinions, comments, hot takes, silence feels like rebellion. But to the Stoic, silence isn't weakness, it's mastery. It's the sound of someone who no longer needs to win every battle to feel secure. Seneca once said, "No one can bring you peace but yourself." And peace often begins where your voice ends. Because silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means what you could say isn't worth disturbing your inner clarity. Let's be honest, most of us feel the urge to respond, to defend ourselves when someone misjudges us, to jump in when someone says something wrong, to speak simply because silence feels uncomfortable. But every time you react on impulse, you give away control. You let their chaos become yours. You trade serenity for superiority and often lose both. The Stoic path offers an alternative. Don't react to prove you're right. Stay silent to prove you're grounded. Because silence isn't passive, it's discerning. It's the art of restraint. It's knowing when your energy is better used inward than outward. Think of it this way. When you argue with a fool, from a distance, it's hard to tell who's who. But when you remain silent, you preserve your distinction. You stay rooted while they unravel. Psychologists call this response inhibition, the ability to pause and choose not to act. And it's a critical skill of emotional intelligence. It keeps you from reacting to every trigger and teaches you to preserve energy for what truly matters. And here's the deeper truth. People often speak to provoke, not to understand. They want a reaction, not resolution. And when you stay silent, you break the pattern. You refuse to play a game you never agreed to join. Silence becomes your shield. Not because you're afraid to fight, but because you know which battles are beneath you. And there's beauty in that. In that pause, between what happens and what you say, you have power. The power to respond with wisdom or not at all. The power to create space instead of conflict. The power to preserve your peace like a sacred flame. Now, let's be clear. Silence isn't always the answer. There are moments to speak truth, set boundaries, defend the vulnerable. But those moments are chosen, not impulsive. And they come from clarity, not ego. That's the Stoic difference. To be so anchored in yourself that silence becomes your language of strength. Imagine a room full of shouting voices. And you, still, centered, present. You don't need to raise your voice because your presence already speaks louder than their volume. That's what Stoicism teaches, that your energy is precious. Your words are sacred, and your silence is a strategy. So the next time you feel the urge to clap back, prove your point, or correct someone who refuses to listen, pause. Ask yourself, will this bring peace or just noise? Do I want to be right or stay free? And then, if it serves your peace, say nothing. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest proof that you've evolved. Part 6. How to build the Stoic inner fortress. There's a place within you where no insult can reach, no chaos can enter, no fear can survive. The Stoics called it the inner fortress, a state of mind built not of stone or steel, but of discipline, clarity, and virtue. And once you build it, you become untouchable, not because the world is soft, but because you are strong. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the chaos of war and empire, once declared, "The mind is the ruler of the soul. It should remain unconquered by pain, pleasure, and fear." That's not denial, it's design. So how do you build that kind of strength? How do you create a space within yourself that remains calm when life outside feels like a storm? It begins with daily practice, not just philosophy, but repetition. Block 1. Self-awareness. Before you can protect your inner space, you must know what's in it. You must become aware of your thoughts, not judge them, not suppress them, but observe them. What triggers you? What stories do you repeat in your mind? What fears haunt your quiet moments? The Stoics believed that journaling, reflection, and silence sharpened awareness, because when you know your own mind, no one else can use it against you. Block 2. Value-driven action. Your fortress is only as strong as the values you live by. Do you act out of principle or pressure? Do you choose integrity over comfort? Do you hold yourself to standards even when no one is watching? Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Discipline builds confidence, and confidence builds walls that noise cannot penetrate. Block 3. Acceptance of what you can't control. No fortress stands if you try to guard every direction at once. You must know what's yours to defend and what's not. Let go of the uncontrollable. Release the obsession with outcomes. As you learned before, inner strength is not in controlling the storm, but standing still in its center. Block 4. Detachment from praise and criticism. The walls of your mind crumble if you let every opinion break through. If someone loves you, stay steady. If someone hates you, stay steady. The Stoic doesn't live for applause. They live for alignment, with truth, with virtue, with self. Block 5. Rehearsal of adversity. Seneca practiced what he called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Each day he imagined what could go wrong: loss, failure, betrayal. Not to dwell in negativity, but to prepare. To train the mind to remain firm when life proves unpredictable, as it always does. The more you rehearse adversity, the less it surprises you. And the less it surprises you, the more grounded you remain. Block 6. Stillness. Your fortress isn't built in moments of noise. It's forged in stillness. When you meditate, when you walk without your phone, when you breathe deeply and reconnect with that quiet place beneath the chaos. Stillness is not a luxury. It's a practice. And it's where your power regenerates. Now, don't mistake this fortress for isolation. You are not cutting yourself off from the world. You're building a foundation strong enough to meet the world with open hands and an unshakable spine. When your inner world is fortified, You don't need external validation. You don't chase peace, it finds you. You don't fear the winds. You've become the mountain. So the next time the world feels loud, return to your breath. Return to your center. And remember, no one can take your peace unless you leave the gate open. Part 7. Transforming pain into purpose. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And what you do with your pain defines who you become. To the Stoics, pain wasn't an enemy. It was a messenger, a forge, a brutal but honest teacher. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, buried children, led wars, faced betrayal, and battled illness. Yet he wrote in his journal, not with bitterness, but with perspective. What stands in the way becomes the way. That is the Stoic transformation, turning the obstacle into the path, turning pain into power. We live in a world that avoids discomfort. We numb it, escape it, scroll past it, medicate it. But the Stoic leans in, not masochistically, but mindfully. Because buried inside every wound is a lesson, and hidden in every setback is a seed of strength. So how do we turn pain into purpose? Step 1. Feel it fully. Stoicism doesn't mean pretending you're fine. It means being honest with what you're feeling without being consumed by it. You were betrayed? Acknowledge it. You're grieving? Let yourself cry. You're disappointed? Say it out loud. Emotions lose their grip when you name them. But if you suppress them, they grow in the dark. Even Seneca, the master of reason, admitted that tears can be virtuous when they come from a soul that still chooses courage. Step 2. Ask, what is this here to teach me? Pain always carries a message. Sometimes it tells you what you value. Sometimes it shows you where your boundaries were weak. Sometimes it reveals the illusions you clung to. When you ask what pain is teaching, you move from victim to student. And students become masters if they stay awake. Step 3. Use the energy. Pain creates heat, energy, emotion. You can let that energy destroy you or fuel something greater. History is filled with people who turned heartbreak into mission. Viktor Frankl found meaning inside a concentration camp. Nelson Mandela emerged from 27 years in prison with forgiveness instead of vengeance. Helen Keller turned blindness and deafness into world-changing advocacy. Their pain became the platform, not because the pain was fair, but because they refused to waste it. Step 4. Detach from the outcome. The Stoics never promised life would get easier, only that you would get stronger. You may not always get justice. You may not always get closure. You may not always get back what you lost. But you will become someone deeper, wiser, more grounded, more compassionate because you know how it feels to hurt and still choose virtue. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. So when pain knocks, you don't run. You open the door with grace. You let it teach you. Then you thank it and let it leave." Step 5. Share your scars. Not to gain sympathy, but to give strength. Your survival becomes someone else's survival guide. Your breakthrough gives language to someone still in the dark. Your healed wounds become reminders you're not alone. And yes, this too can be overcome. When pain is transformed, it becomes service. And there is no purpose deeper than that. So the next time life breaks your heart, don't ask, why me? Ask, what now? What can I build from this? Who can I help because of this? Because you are not made to avoid pain. You were made to rise through it. And when you do, you don't just become stronger, you become sacred. Part 8. Practicing detachment without becoming cold. There's a fine line between detachment and indifference. And for many, that line feels blurry. We hear, detach, let go, don't let things affect you. But what does that really mean? Are we supposed to stop caring? To shut down emotionally? To harden our hearts just to survive? Absolutely not. Stoic detachment isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. It's about caring deeply without being destroyed when things don't go our way. Marcus Aurelius still loved his children. Seneca still grieved the death of his friends. But they didn't let love turn into possession. They didn't allow loss to turn into self-destruction. Because Stoic detachment is not about pushing people away. It's about refusing to let their actions define your peace. Detachment means this: you show up fully, give wholeheartedly, and act with purpose. But you hold the outcomes loosely. You still love. You still hope. You still dream. But you stop making your happiness dependent on how those things turn out. That's not coldness. That's wisdom. Imagine a sailor who sets out to sea. He can't control the wind. He can't stop the storms. But he can learn to navigate. Detachment is navigation. It's the steady hand on the wheel when the sky turns dark. Many people confuse emotional boundaries with emotional distance. But in Stoicism, detachment is not disconnection. It's presence without possession. It's love without attachment to permanence. It's caring enough to stay soft and strong enough to walk away when needed. Modern psychology echoes this truth. Secure people don't need to cling. They don't need to manipulate. They know that love is not about control. It's about freedom within connection. And here's the paradox. The more detached you are, the more present you become. Because you're no longer trying to bend the future into what you fear or crave. You're simply here, with open hands, open heart, and grounded feet. You don't fall. You flow. You don't close off. You stand tall. It's not about numbing emotion. It's about recognizing that emotions are visitors, not rulers. They come, they teach, they leave, and you remain. So how do you practice this? First, observe your attachments. What do you fear losing? Where do you feel grasping, clinging, over-identification? Then ask, if I lost this, would I lose myself? If the answer is yes, it's time to pull back, not from the person or the goal, but from the illusion that your identity is tied to it. Second, practice letting go in small ways. Be okay when plans change. Be flexible when people disappoint you. Breathe when control slips through your fingers. Because every moment you surrender to what is, you build strength for the moments you can't predict. Third, stay soft. The world doesn't need more people hardened by disappointment. It needs people who can stand in the fire and still choose compassion, who can say goodbye without bitterness, who can love fiercely and release gently. That is the Stoic in their highest form. So no, don't become cold. Become clear. Don't shut down. Show up without gripping. Don't detach from love. Detach from control? That's not weakness. That's freedom. And in that freedom, you discover a version of yourself that no storm can shatter. Part 9. Mastering self-discipline in a distracted world. In a world that profits from your distraction, self-discipline is an act of rebellion. Every day, you wake up surrounded by noise, notifications, advertisements, endless scrolls of entertainment. Your attention is the new currency, and everyone wants a piece. But the Stoics knew something we're just starting to relearn. If you can't command your attention, you can't command your life. Self-discipline is not about punishment. It's not about being harsh with yourself. It's about aligning your actions with your values again and again until your habits become your power. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that freedom, it doesn't come from the absence of rules. It comes from honoring the right ones. The first step is clarity. Discipline without direction is just exhaustion. What do you actually want? Not what the world tells you to want. Not what earns applause, but what brings you peace when no one is watching. Once you know that, every choice becomes a compass, and every distraction becomes an opportunity to return. Next comes consistency. The Stoics believed that greatness wasn't about occasional brilliance. It was about daily effort. It's easy to meditate once, when you're calm. It's hard to show up daily when life gets messy. But the Stoic doesn't wait for the perfect mood. They act because it's the right thing to do. That's discipline. Doing what aligns with your values even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Habits are built through repetition, not motivation. You don't need more inspiration. You need more systems. Start small. Wake up and make your bed. Write for 5 minutes. Sit in silence before checking your phone. Because every small act of discipline trains your brain. It rewires your identity. You stop being someone who tries and start becoming someone who is. Then comes resilience. You will fail. You will slip. But the disciplined person doesn't chase perfection. They build recovery. You missed a day? Begin again. You got distracted? Come back. You lost your temper? Reflect and reset. Forgive yourself fast. But never forget what you're building. And here's the most overlooked part of discipline. It's not just about effort. It's about energy. Protect your environment. Your phone isn't just a tool, it's a trap if you don't manage it. The people around you aren't just influences, they're architects of your identity. Choose inputs that feed your focus. Consume content that strengthens your character. Say no, not because you're rigid, but because you're clear. The Stoics call this the practice of temperance. It's not about restriction. It's about freedom from excess, from overindulgence, from addiction to things that numb instead of nourish. Self-discipline is saying, I could, but I choose not to. Not because someone's watching, but because you've become someone you don't want to disappoint. And slowly, you begin to respect yourself more. Not because you always succeed, but because you keep showing up. That's what separates the distracted from the deliberate. Not talent, not genius, but small daily choices that say, this matters to me. So if you want to live like a Stoic in the modern world, start by mastering your morning. Start by guarding your mind. Start by honoring your word to yourself. Because in a world that tries to pull you in every direction, discipline is how you hold your ground. And when you do, you'll find something rare. Stillness in chaos. Clarity in noise. Strength in silence. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Part 10. Living stoically in a chaotic world. The world is loud and fast and messy. Every day, you wake up to uncertainty, news cycles spinning, opinions clashing, pressure mounting. And in the middle of that storm, so you're expected to be calm, focused, strong. And is that even possible? The Stoics believed it was not only possible, but necessary. They didn't wait for the world to change. They trained themselves to face it with courage, clarity, and character. Because true Stoicism doesn't live in quiet temples. It lives in the chaos of daily life. It lives in your ability to choose response over reaction, to practice virtue when anger would be easier, to hold stillness when everything around you screams for urgency. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire at war. His journal wasn't a luxury, it was survival. He wrote, "Not as a man at peace with the world, but as a man determined to build peace within." That's the Stoic challenge today. Not to escape reality, but to rise within it. To wake up and ask, What can I control today? What values will I embody? How will I meet chaos, not with panic, but with principle? The modern world pulls you in every direction. Algorithms try to control your attention. Consumerism tells you you're never enough. The news feeds on fear. But Stoicism offers an ancient rebellion. Don't get pulled in. Get pulled inward. You don't need to react to every post. You don't need to argue every opinion. You don't need to prove yourself to everyone who misunderstands you. You need to ground yourself in truth, in practice, in perspective. A Stoic doesn't pretend life is easy. They accept that hardship is part of the human condition, and they prepare not with paranoia, but with purpose. So how do you live stoically in a chaotic world? You start by choosing what you feed your mind. You read wisdom before checking headlines. You walk in silence before scrolling endlessly. You surround yourself with people who call you to your higher self, not your weaker impulses. You pause before responding. You breathe before reacting. You listen deeper than most speak. You measure success not by what you achieve, but by who you become. Not by how easy your life looks, but by how honest and strong you remain when it's hard. You forgive faster, not because others deserve it, but because your peace does. You let go of control, not because you're passive, but because you're wise enough to know what's yours and what's not. You honor your body. You rest when needed. You say no with clarity and yes with intention. And in the process, you build a life that doesn't depend on perfect conditions, but on a powerful inner foundation. That's what Stoicism gives you. Not escape, not emotionlessness, but equanimity, the kind of balance that can walk through fire without burning everything around it. So, yes, the world is chaotic, but you don't have to be. You can be the quiet center in the spinning wheel, the stillness in the storm, the calm presence that reminds others what strength really looks like. Because living stoically doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you feel deeply but remain rooted. It means you move with emotion but never get swept away. It means you love, grieve, strive, fail, and begin again without losing who you are. That's the Stoic life. And in today's world, it's not just wise, it's revolutionary. If you've made it this far, you've already done something rare. You've chosen to slow down in a world that rushes, to reflect in a culture that distracts, to ask deeper questions when shallow answers are everywhere. You've explored how to remain calm when life is loud, how to face pain without losing yourself, how to detach without growing cold, how to build discipline without becoming rigid, how to live with purpose in a world that rewards performance. And maybe now you realize something? The Stoic path isn't about perfection. It's not about becoming emotionless or indifferent. It's about choosing to live with intention, even when life doesn't cooperate. It's about remembering in moments of stress or struggle that you always have one sacred power, your response. You don't control what others say. You don't control what tomorrow brings. But you control your attitude, your habits, your inner posture. And from that posture, you shape your life. Marcus Aurelius wasn't superhuman. Seneca wasn't flawless. Epictetus wasn't born wise. They practiced, they stumbled, they returned. And so can you. So the next time the noise rises, pause, breathe, remember what you've learned here. You are not just a product of your circumstances. You are the builder of your character. And character, unlike comfort, lasts forever. Thank you for walking this path with us. If this journey spoke to something inside you, if you felt seen, heard, or strengthened in any way, consider subscribing to the Chill Stoic. We create this space for thinkers like you, for people who crave calm in a chaotic world, and who believe that a quiet mind is the loudest strength. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, stay unshakable.